Hi everybody, it's 314 React. Today we're going to be looking at Rainbow Six with the brand new DLSS 2.2. So we're just going to dive in and have a look at the frame rates, how it looks. These are the display settings I'm using. 4K, 144 Hz, VSync I'm going to switch off so we can get the full frame rate. The graphics, we have NVIDIA Reflex on, texture quality is at ultra, anisotropic filtering at 16x. LED quality ultra, shading quality high, shadow quality very high, reflection quality high, VFX quality ultra, SSBC ambient occlusion, lens effects full, zoom in depth of field on, and DLSS of course at quality, and TAA sharpness at 0, which does actually affect DLSS as well, but we'll look into that in a bit. First thing I'm going to do is just load up a practice match. So here we are, and we're running about 191 frames a second. And this is running on a Core i7 6700K with an RTX3090, 32 gigs of RAM, and it looks so smooth. And we're reaching 200 frames a second there. So if we find a nice location, you can see the edges of the gun there, the corners of these buildings up here, the little bits there. All looks really, really good, really smooth. And even putting like my face close to the screen, it looks pretty flawless to me. So the second best, which I was using before, to put on TAA 4X, and that takes us down to 87 frames a second. Over 100 frames taken off there, and the image looks worse. So you can see some of the edges of these parts of the buildings around here, those little bits there, around there. It just looks rougher. You can still see there's odd parts where it still looks a bit janky, still like aliasing sort of effect. Obviously this video is going to be best viewed in 4K at full screen. And even these little swinging bits there on the ropes, you can kind of see where there's like some sort of sub-pixel issues going on as that little rope becomes smaller than the pixels. So you're getting some weird sub-pixely stuff going on. So the other way it can be played with TAA is to crank the TAA down to 2x, which will give you 140 frames a second, which is a bit more what we want for this kind of game. But things really start to get blurry at this point. And yeah, the quality starting to drop quite severely from 4. Especially with the ropes here, it's there, top along the building there, the gun itself. There's also the fact that it looks a little bit blurry with this as well. So you have to kind of go in and turn up the TAA sharpness quite a way just to get that under control, make it look a little bit better. But then you go back to DLSS and the whole image just looks far better. And you can see the little rope there. The sub-pixel sort of issues, they're still kind of present, but nowhere near as bad, because DLSS is actually filling in those details a bit better. The tops of the buildings look sharper. It's actually starting to approach the sort of image quality of super sampling 4X. This is the best implementation of DLSS I've seen. Now, the sharpness can be adjusted in DLSS as well. Don't know if this is a bug or intentional, but you can sharpen it up. But whenever you do sharpen it up, you start to see sharpening artifacts, like on the edge of the silencer of the gun there, and around the optic. It just looks a little bit weird, a little bit too sharp. I don't really see why you'd need to adjust the sharpness of DLSS. So it's a bit strange, especially if we turn it up to 100, then it gets really overly sharp. So I don't know if they've just accidentally left that on, because yeah, there shouldn't really be a need for it. So yeah, turn that to 0. Anyone who's used super sampling back in the day, or DSR, more modern, you'll know that the frame rate really tanks out when you start to use those sort of things. So to have the frame rate double and it have that same quality is insane. It's like the ultimate optimization. The little bits of grass there look really nice as well. That's usually where aliasing can go really wrong, even with anti-aliasing on. Stuff like that can really look bad. You can see there it just looks a bit blurry with TAA 2X. And if it's 2D sprite kind of grass, then MSAA isn't going to really work very well on it. TAA is going to look blurry depending on the implementation. Even TAA 4 times doesn't look quite as good. You can still see there's like artifacting on the blades of grass as they move. Then of course you put on DLSS and pretty much borderline looks flawless. And given the jump from DLSS 1 to 2 to 2.1 to 2.2, I imagine by the time we hit DLSS 3, this will probably be indistinguishable from actual 4K or 8K rendering. In fact, it'll probably be better because it'll be trying to recreate a super sampled 4K image. And I imagine Cyberpunk will be getting this soon as well, because I think you can take the DLL from this game and just drop it into Cyberpunk, and you can get DLSS 2.2 in Cyberpunk, which is crazy. So now what I want to do is try one of the other DLSS methods and see how it looks back in that same area. Let's put it on auto. See what that does. So you can notice some immediate blur there on the textures, and it doesn't look as good as TAA at this point. You can see there's some weird shimmering in the distance. Textures don't look right. There's still some aliasing. There's even some sort of weird thing going on with the textures here. Oh, I know why. It's because of the these little particle effects. Quite a lot of blur going on with that plane flying by as well. Kind of reminds me of the weird sort of checkerboarding thing they use in Breakpoint best, but we are getting 224 frames out of it. Let's go to Ultra Performance, which looks the same as the Auto mode. Same frame rate as well, so I think Auto mode just puts it on Ultra Performance for some reason. See as that helicopter goes by, that's got some weird sort of artifacts on it as well. On that distant crane there as well. A lot of weird shimmering going on. So Ultra Performance is going to give you some serious frame rates. Because I think Ultra Performance is really for running at 8K. Let's switch over to just Performance mode. So that sharpens things up quite a bit. Still got a bit of blur. About 20-30 frames down from Ultra Performance. But that looks a lot better. That takes that shimmering a lot more under control. The distant particles there look a lot better. A lot less shimmering on those cranes out there. That's probably approaching the quality of TAA 4 times, maybe a little bit less, maybe TAA 2 times, but again for over like double the frame rate. Now if we go to balanced, that looks really nice, balanced mode. So that again looks pretty much like TAA 4 times with a bit of sharpening, or TAA 2 times with a bit of sharpening. Probably closer to TAA 4 times, I'd say. 10 frames down from performance mode. That's a really good mode to use. That's probably the mode that you want to be using if you've got a more mid-end sort of card and you're running a higher resolution. Crank it back up to quality, and there you go, you've got the very best. And all that sort of weird sub-pixel shimmering's gone. That plane flying over looks normal. Cranes. Really nice detail filled in there on the distant stuff. Textures look really nice. So if you're running higher end stuff, quality is definitely the way to go. And still, we're only about 20 frames down from balanced. So if we go to here again and we turn DLSS off and TAA on, you'll see there video memory 7.7 gigs. If you turn DLSS back on, that takes 700 megs off of your VRAM. Again, 700 meg gain on the VRAM, and it looks better, and the frame rate's better. DLSS 2.2 is basically magic. It looks better than every other solution out there. The only way I can imagine it could look better is by actually just using DSR or old school super sampling and just cranking it up to like 4 times the super sampled image. But then you'd have like 20 frames a second or something like that. And it would only look marginally better. I mean, DLSS first came out in 2018. So the level of progress from that original blurry version to almost being indistinguishable from actual 4K super sampled is crazy. I mean, that's a very short amount of time to go up such quality. The other interesting thing to note here is that with VSync off, it's pretty much constantly over 144, which is what this game runs at when I have VSync on. So when I've got VSync on, the image has no tearing and it's pretty much locked at 144 frames and looks beautiful. Now next week is DLSS and ray tracing coming to Doom Eternal. I've done a video on ray tracing on Doom Eternal before, but it was screen space ray tracing done with Reshade and Mike McFly's RTGI shader, whereas this is going to be a full RTX hardware implementation. So that's going to be really interesting to see. From the previews that I've seen, it doesn't look quite as robust as some of the other RT implementations I've seen. Certainly not to the extent of Metro Exodus. I think it just handles mostly reflections and a bit of lighting. So you'll have more well-defined reflections, no reflections dropping off the screen kind of thing. I'm really interested to see what the frame rate is with DLSS on in Doom, but no ray tracing. And then ray tracing on with no DLSS, and then ray tracing on with DLSS. Because Doom Eternal runs pretty damn good with my 3090 in raster, and even with RTGI on. So it'll be very interesting to see how it handles it with hardware ray tracing. So here we are on another map just quickly, and again the details are just so nice, even through the fences there. Again, this is where you can have real issues with anti-aliasing, and certainly when it goes into subpixels. You're seeing a bit there as the chains of the fence are going smaller than the actual pixels on the screen. It's causing weird shimmering. It's not as strange and as horrible shimmering as you get with old school or older anti-aliasing techniques, especially like what you'd see with MSAA. I mean, TA here doesn't look too bad. In fact, that might even be handling the chain links a little bit better than DLSS was. There's slightly less shimmering, but it does look like it's slightly distorting the ground behind it. Again, we're down to 70 frames here, and you can see on there's a little bit of shimmering on the Picatinny rails of the weapon there. Yeah, Christmas tree here, you're seeing some aliasing in the leaves and more tinier parts of the details, stuff like that. But again, you turn that DLSS on and it cleans it right up. Still a little bit of shimmering on the Picatinny rail of the gun there, but mostly being handled, and I imagine they'll find a way around that. Subpixel shimmering is still gonna be an issue even at 4K. I imagine by the time you get to 8K it'll be sorted. 8K and like DLSS 3, and I imagine shimmering will be a thing of the past. But yeah, this looks beautiful. I can't wait to see what Doom Eternal looks like next week. I think June 29th is when the free update goes out. And you will need an RTX card for it. I think it may be compatible with AMD's own ray tracing stuff. I'm not too sure about that though, because it should all go through the Vulkan RT pipeline. But that'll be really interesting. So yeah, that was just a quick video I wanted to do on how good DLSS 2.2 looks, the potential future of it. Please do like and subscribe, and leave a comment, let me know what you think. And also stick around for, like I said, Doom Eternal next week. I should be doing a video on RTX when that is released. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.